Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of This Week in the XFL. And I'm your host, the referee with XFL2K.com, the number one source in XFL news. So sign you up for joining us today. We have a lot to go over. As you know, or as you may not know, we attended the XFL Summer Showcase in Houston last weekend. And we were lucky enough to have our friend at XFLplus.com attend the summer showcase up in Dallas. So make sure you read the recaps over at XFL2K.com. Links down in the description. So hey, let's get started. Let's go through the news. I have a lot of footage from the showcase, but before we get to that, we have a couple of items to discuss. So first and foremost, the XFL is returning to the Spring League. So it looks like June 17th through 20th and then July 28th through 31st, the XFL will be back with the Spring League, this time in California, so unfortunately we will not be able to attend. Well, we'll see. But they're going to be doing some scouting, doing some more rule testing, and by that time we'll have some of these showcases wrapped up, and definitely by that second Spring League event, all the showcases will be wrapped up, so we might see some of the folks there. We might see some new folks get signed because of these events, but it's good to see. So Oliver Luck, CEO and commissioner, had to comment on this, so we got the comment. He says, we're in an important phase of our development, and the Spring League gives us the perfect platform to continue our effort to reimagine the game. This is key. There's a lot of testing that needs to happen to make sure that the XFL is perfect come February 8th, 2020. So he also had to say, we had a great experience and learned so much at the Spring League in April. And hey, we were there. We saw a lot of things that happened. And there was some good stuff going on. That's when we first learned about the rule testing, some of the overtime things they were trying out, running game clocks. A lot of this we'll touch on in the Chalk Talk portion of the Summer Showcase. But he feels confident that these next two sessions will have identified a few XFL caliber players and be closer to finalizing their rule book. So as we know, they're trying to get that rule book out by the end of summer. This happens, mid-summer. So this is going to help them finalize that book. So hopefully, as we get to August, we can see the final version, see if any of these things have changed since when they first tested them in the Spring League to what they're testing now to what they're doing at the showcase will be any different, from what we see with that finalized rule book. So it's great to see. I love the partnership. It's any opportunity for the XFL to get back out there and get that real time testing, I'm all for it. So sign them up. Next story we have two little player stories. So first we're going to start with Johnny Football, Mr. Money himself. He was not he was in Houston over the weekend as well, but he was not at the Summer Showcase. He was actually at the TriStar Collectors Fest, signing autographs, memorabilia, things like that, taking photos. But the Houston Chronicle, a local paper, and actually a bunch of other different publications asked him the same thing. What's the deal? Do you care about the XFL? And he's all about it. He would love to play for the Houston or Dallas team, mainly because of where he played. He played for the A&M Aggies. A lot of those folks came out to see him at the TriStar Collectors Festival there. So, the unfortunate thing for him, as we know, the XFL is not doing a regional draft, right? So it's not like the Alliance, not like the AAF, where you go to whichever team you live close or played closest to. This is going to be a true draft. So he would have to hope one of those two Texas teams pick him up. Now, as we've reported in the past, Houston head coach June Jones would love to have Manziel there. At least he said he would entertain the idea. So I wouldn't doubt if Houston gets that number one pick, we could see Manziel playing again in the XFL. As for Dallas, I don't know. It really matters where Landry Jones falls to that list, because I really do feel Stoops has an eye on his former protege. So good stuff. Always nice to see Manziel's name still out there. We'll see come next February, or really we'll know this October during the draft, or at least by then, if he will be joining the league. So in the next one down, this isn't so much a player, but it's a former player, former MVP Tommy Maddox. He may be returning to the XFL. Well, we don't know. We don't know if he's returning, but we do know that his former job at Decatur is now vacant. So he was a former baseball coach at Decatur, North Texas there. And like I said, the listing is, his position is vacant. He no longer works there. We don't know if he left or if he got let go, but we'll just say the timing is, we'll say, suspicious, right? So last week we reported on the fact that the XFL was trying to get the trademark to He Hate Me. Now the week after, we're seeing Tommy Maddox no longer works at his place of employment. Now, like I said, I don't think he's coming. Well, he's definitely not coming in as a player. I don't think he'll come in as a coach, but I could absolutely see him and maybe He Hate Me, Rod Smart, coming in as TV personalities. So that would be great. I would love that. That was actually one of the predictions I had a little bit in the past, but only time will tell. So before we get to the summer showcase stuff, we're just going to run through the staff tracker again, going in alphabetical order of the cities. Not as a robust list this week, but we're going to run down them anyway. So starting with Houston, we have Dynamite Kuhn as the director of football operations. Real nice guy, met him out at the showcase. Cool dude, seems like he loves his job. He's gonna be perfect for the city of Houston. He was formerly the director of football operations for Howard. He also did a lot of scouting for Brevard and some other schools and things like that. But like I said, after talking to him, I think he's a perfect fit. Totally nice guy, totally chill, so sign him up. Now we're moving over to LA, Los Angeles, the biggest one of the group. We have Norm Chow as the offensive coordinator. Again, big deal. So he's coached for the Utes, the Bruins, the Titans, right? The Titans, maybe not the greatest role there, but he did coach there. The Trojans, the Wolfpack, and the BYU Cougars. And the one thing that really intrigues me is he's known for developing quarterbacks. He's worked with Jim McMahon, Steve Young, Phillip Rivers, Matt Leinart, Carson Palmer. These are big names. Not all of them had the most successful careers. I'm looking at you, Leinart, when you were with the Cardinals there. But hey, sign them out. But that's what I like to see. These are the types of coaches I want in the league. Guys that can build up young players to bring them to a new level in their game. And this guy's going to do it, right? So moving over to New York, we have Chris Dishman as the defensive backs coach. Former cornerback for the Houston Oilers. He played for the Chiefs, the Vikings, and the Redskins as well. He was an assistant over for the Chargers, and he worked under Art Briles for the Baylor Bears. Art Briles isn't having the best time right now, but he was a good coach, and the Baylor Bears were a solid team during that time. So moving over to D.C., we have Greg Gabrielle as the director of player personnel. He worked 16 years with the Giants in the scouting department, and most recently with the Bears, right? He selected 16 players for the Bears who started in at least one game in 2008. That's a pretty good record, right? So sign them up. Those are the list of hires that we have for this week. Now is the moment that everybody's been waiting for. So like I said, I have a whole bunch of B-roll footage. We're just going to kind of roll that while I talk about the event. I would use the audio, but there was a lot of wind out there, and quite honestly, they were playing music that will get this video demonetized. So hey, B-roll it is, sign them up, and quite honestly, the audio wasn't that interesting anyway. The doors opened at 11:30. We got there a little bit early, and they let us in. There was actually a couple folks there, and I will say, for a Houston summer, the weather was as good as it could be. It was a bit humid, but nothing out of the ordinary for June in Houston. There wasn't a rain cloud in the sky, and that's a big deal, right? You never know when it's going to rain out here. It rained dogs and cats out in Austin for the spring league, so I was worried that was going to happen out here in Houston, and fortunately enough, it did not happen. And I'll say, even as I first got there was a decent showing in attendance, but as the day went on, I was definitely surprised. There was at least about 150 to 200 people there, and that's not including the media. And this event was sent out to ticket holder depositors, right? Or season ticket depositors, excuse me. So that means there's a pretty decent amount of folks that have put down the deposit for season tickets out here in Houston. Now, looking back at the AAF, looking at the San Antonio Commanders, they packed that house. There was around 30,000 per night, and some of the numbers were fudged a little bit, but really you could tell there was a lot of folks in that stadium. So I think it's smart that the XFL has two teams in Texas, and I'm just so happy and I feel so lucky that one's in my hometown of Houston. But here we are. We got to go to the event, and as they showed up, they handed us a roster. They kind of gave us a breakdown of what is going on at the event, what the drills are, the types of things that they're doing, what they're testing, what they're looking for, right? Now, we initially posted the rosters on our Twitter at XFL2KCom, which you should follow us if you haven't already. And there was some questions because our list actually differed from the one that the XFL officially posted later that day. And from what we understand, there may have been some logistical problems there with travel and things like that. The two big names that we know could not attend the event or did not attend the event, Zach Mettenberger, quarterback for the Memphis Express, and Brandon Silver. So, it's unfortunate that they didn't get to go because I really wanted to watch them and see how they would play out there and what kind of motions they would do and see how good, if they were still in shape and kind of see how they would adapt to this playing style. But they weren't there, unfortunately, but we did have some good highlights as far as some players, and so we'll get to that. So let's go through the 4 different segments that the Summer Showcase was broken down to, at least from an on-field level, right? So we had position drills. So from a quarterback standpoint, passing, accuracy, arm strength, football IQ, things like that. Where does the football go? How fast can they release it? Things of that nature. From a running back perspective, balance, vision, acceleration, right? You want to see, can they move fast? Can they drop on a dime? Things of that nature, right? Wide receivers, catching ability, athleticism, body control. How far can they reach? How long are those arms, right? Are they the long arm of the law, or are they just going to drop that ball? We need to know these things before the season kicks off. O-line, D-line, body and foot quickness, play strength, and overall athletic ability, right? These are key things, right? You want to have, especially with a running game clock, and Oliver Luck touched on this during the Chalk Talk, you need to have guys that can not only play, but keep up, right? You need to have that resistance in your body built up. So these are the things they're looking at. Linebackers, instinct awareness, strength, point of attack, burst of acceleration, right? All key features that you need to know. Defensive back, reaction to quickness, play speed, burst to close. And I will say there was some really interesting things going on, So that's just the position drills. But, just to kind of jump forward a little bit, as you hit the field, there's things going on both sides of the field and even different corners of each end zone, right? So when we first came in, you saw the quarterbacks throwing to the wide receivers and the running backs trying different drills out and things like that. We saw them try the multiple forward passes. On the other end, you had defense split up into 2 corners doing, all sorts of things, which hopefully it's lining up with the footage right here, but hey, we'll see. So going over to the next segment. So we had a lot of questions. What is the X Factor? We had announced that, during the Summer Showcase, they were going to do these X Factor drills, and people really weren't sure what that meant. So basically, it's just regular testing, but using the wearables to monitor the players, right? Like I said, they're looking at players that can keep up. They need players that can keep that pace in the game on the offense and the defense, almost especially the defense, right? Because if your defense wears down, that offense is going to run all over you, and your defense is just going to get worn down real quick. So X Factor testing, sign them up. We have the one-on-one drills. So, position-specific exercises designed to demonstrate performance against another opponent, right? So really, me against you, you against another guy, how far can you push, things like that. And then the 7-on-7 drills. Now, unfortunately, the 7-on-7 drills took place during the Chalk Talk, as did the drills for the media. So as we were talking last week, unfortunately, we don't have video of me doing the drills. Had I known that this was happening during the Chalk Talk, I probably would have just skipped the Chalk Talk, let my wife take the notes, watch the 7-on-7 drills, and do the drills myself, because even though I am out of shape, even though I would have been embarrassed, it would have been fun. So hey, hopefully next time, hopefully there is a next time, we'll see. But basically the 7-on-7 is just a game simulation, just with 7 players on 7 players. Now there were no kickers at these events, but it's just offense against defense, things like that. So now I had mentioned there's 2 standouts from this event, just for me. Now that's not to say these were the only 2, but these were the 2 that caught my eye. So the first, from an offensive standpoint, we have former BYU quarterback Tom Maddox. And I apologize if I'm saying the name incorrectly. I have a Midwest accent, so pretty much everything I say is wrong in one way or another. But the dude was on point, quick. And you'll see some of this is in my footage here. Once he had that ball, he could get rid of it real quick. Not everybody caught his passes, but they were fast, they were on point, they were right on target. He had good speed. He could run from one set of the offense to the other. We saw him testing out those multiple forward passes from both sides, from him passing it to another guy and them passing it, from him getting it passed, from them passing it back a couple times. And every time we saw him do it, it was pretty solid. So, sign him up. I really hope to see him in the league. I wouldn't mind having him in here in Houston. I won't mind. I like BYU too. Solid school, solid players, and he looked like he'd be right at home in any one of the 8 franchises. Like I said, unfortunately, Mettenberger and Silvers couldn't come to the event because I really wanted to see what they were capable of, see what they could do. But unfortunately, they weren't there for one reason or another. In Dallas, they had Landry Jones, and from what I understand from XFL Plus, which you should check him out on Twitter and xflplus.com, dude was solid out there. That's another guy I wouldn't mind having in Houston, but I have a feeling if Dallas is before us in that draft, Bob Stoops is going to pick him up. But again, it all depends. We don't even know who's going to be in this draft yet. And just today, and we'll just kind of take a segment here, we learned that Hakeem Nicks is going to be at the Summer Showcase today in New York. That's a big name. That's a Super Bowl champion. He worked with the head coach of XFL New York, Kevin Gilbride. I love it. Like I said, he might be a little bit older. He's younger than me. He's 31. I think the dude, especially with a shorter season, it's easier for him to stay healthy. He can go out there. He can catch those balls. Tom Maddox could be tossing them balls left and right, and he could be running them in. So you know what? I'd really like to see that. So sorry to break away, but that's just a little tidbit of news I figure I'd drop in there since this happened around the time that we are recording. Now, from a defensive end, we have a safety from Louisiana, Shaquille Lewis. Now, of all the guys on the defense, and probably all the guys on the field at all, this dude was having the most fun. He was out there in between doing his drills, just signing people up, giving people high fives, going, woo, let's have fun, getting everybody riled up. And that's the type of stuff I want to see in the XFL. Football is 90% of the game, but there still needs to be that 10% entertainment value without being like the old XFL. And I think this guy can bring it. And beyond the entertainment factor, beyond him just being signed up, the dude was solid. He was probably the best guy out there when it comes to the defense, especially when you look at the quality of drills, right? There was not one cone that was knocked over. He could change direction on the drop of a dime. He had good speed, all while having fun. And like I said, there's some footage of him down there in the B-roll, so you'll see him. He's got some dreads. He has his shirts tied up. He was having a blast. So another guy I would love to have in Houston, But more importantly, I would love to see what a guy like a Winston Moss does with him, right? A solid defensive mind. So either way, those are my two standouts, right? Like I had mentioned, we had missed the 7-on-7 drills as well as the media drills, but this is about the time we went in. We had a little bit of lunch. It was really nice of the XFL, so thank you if anybody's watching. They served us up with some burgers, some dogs, some chips. They even had some refreshments, and I was amazed. They had some beer there, so, I won't lie. I did partake in just one adult beverage. You got to stay professional, but you got to have a little bit of fun at the same time. So, the Chalk Talk, it was actually very similar to what Oliver Luck had done at the Spring League in April out in Austin, with a little bit more details because, of course, we're a little bit further along. We know all of the head coaches. We know, we're starting to see a lot of the assistants and the supplementary coaches come on, as well as a lot of the executive level people. But, he pretty much broke it down. He wanted to talk about what is the XFL, where are we at, and what are we doing, right? What should you expect to see on the field next February, right? We're only 8 months away. It seems like a long time, but it's going to go like that. It's going to be real quick. And the XFL knows that. So, first, he kind of talked about how he ended up in the league. He said, roughly about a year ago, Vinnie Mac called him. He wanted him to join the league, and he didn't lie. He was very apprehensive, mainly in part because of, different spring leagues in the past, but most importantly, the way the original XFL was handled back in 2001. But he said he was convinced because McMahon pretty much told him he would give Luck whatever he needed to make this league successful, right? He pretty much gave Oliver Luck 100% control of building this league out. And as you can tell, it is very different than the first time around. We spoke to Mr. Luck while we were at the event and had a kind of a sidebar on how interesting it is, the dichotomy between the two leagues, and how crazy it is, and how people are really starting to realize now this is not the old XFL. This new XFL is legitimate, right? And so he kind of spoke about how do you reimagine the game? How do you change the game of football without adding gimmicks, without repeating the same mistakes of every other failed spring football league, right? How do you do that? So he broke it down into 4 different key focus areas, right? So first was minimalizing the idle time, basically speeding up the game, getting the game running so people don't get bored. And they have a couple things that they're pretty much finalized on. So one was a running game clock. So that clock is going to run the whole game except the last 2 minutes of each half, which is what he called the comeback period, right? That is when the clock is going to stop if you go out of bounds and things of that nature, right? The other one was the 25-second shot clock. He said it may still bounce to 30, but they're testing that out, but they want it to be fast. They want their players to be quick on their toes. And especially, right, it's going to create a whole different type of strategy for your coaches, which lucky enough here in Houston, run and shoot, sign us up. I think Jones is going to be able to handle it, right? Another interesting thing he brought up during this segment was the XFL is only going to have 4 timeouts instead of 6, right? So again, talking about that strategy, the coaches really need to pick and choose when they want to use those timeouts because they're losing 2 a game, right? And again, that in turn will speed up the game. We won't have maybe unnecessary stoppages where we're just icing the kicker or something like that, right? So the next focus area was to increase meaningful action. And basically, things like keeping that ball going. They don't want 4th and down type plays. They don't want plays that don't mean anything. They don't want to ice the kicker. But again, speeding up the game, they're going to have dedicated ball spotters. Meaningful plays. Look at the overtime. I think that explains the meaningful plays 100%, right? And Oliver Luck used this example. When you look at last year's NFL playoffs between the Patriots and the Chiefs, they went to overtime, but Patrick Mahomes never touched the field, right? And so with this new overtime, you're giving both teams best players a shot to win the game. And just in case you don't remember what the, how their overtime worked, basically, you're going to have both teams on the field at the same time. An offense and defense at one end zone and the other offense and defense at the other end zone. They're going to take shots to score in rounds of 5. So they're going to alternate. One team shoots, the other team shoots. If the defensive team on either side catches the ball or recovers a fumble, that's a point, right? That's pretty dang cool. And really, they're going to keep these games under 3 hours. The overtime should be under 5 minutes, and I like it. The next 2 sections, they said there's still a lot of work to do in these pillars, but better rhythm, right? Talk about the ball spotter to make sure that by the time that the players are at that line, the ball's spotted, it's ready to go. And then the last one is the player safety, right? They're talking about trying different things out, like how far the linemen are away from each other. Are they right at the line? Are they a yard apart? Something that June Jones actually commented on, because it's something they do in the CFL. And he said, it's great for safety and it's great to read your other team's plays. So he hopes they do it, right? So from the Chalk Talk, they moved into the Q&A with June Jones, and really kind of Oliver Luck. He jumped in a little bit, right? And it was kind of funny. Right at the beginning, June Jones started up and he said, if we're doing this 3-tiered extra point gig, I'm going for 3 every time. And I like it. Sign him up. The dude knows how to win some games. He's going for that 9-point play every time. I'm telling you, XFL Houston is going to be exciting. We're going to have a great rivalry with Dallas. He brought it up actually during this Q&A. A friendly rivalry, of course. He also spoke about, all of his friends that he has from the CFL here. Mark Trestman, Jerry Glanville, Elizondo, things, people like that. And he's excited to play against them. He's excited to work with them. He's really just excited to build this new league out. So, that's about it for this week in the XFL. Join us next week again every Friday right here on youtube.com/XFL2K. But hey, before I let you go, if you didn't know, make sure you drop us a follow on Facebook and Twitter at XFL2K.com. And here, since we're on YouTube, make sure you drop a like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell to see when we're dropping new videos. Some are going to be live and some are going to be pre-recorded just like this one. So until next time, sign you up. I've been watching you.